What's up, Victoria? It's Victoria. Today I went into my beautiful, amazing, stunning roommate's room, Tiff, and I stole some of their makeup to use on camera. I have done this video before. I did it 2 holiday seasons ago where I stole back makeup that I gave to them. This time I wanted to play with makeup that I wouldn't normally play with, or I don't know, some of it's stuff I've never used before, some of it's stuff I have used before and I just kind of want to try again. I haven't used this in a really long time. This is from Caudalie. It's the Eau de Beauté Beauty Elixir. It's been a minute since I did my skincare this morning, so I'm just gonna give myself a quick refresh. When I worked for Sephora, we used to get this a lot in gratis, and it's one of those things that I really hated until I started loving. That weird mentholy smell in it. It's very medicinal. It's something that I came around to after a while where I'm like, wow, I mean, I really do like the smell of that. It's really nice. Not really like a setting spray. I think one can use it as a finishing spray and it will help melt some things into your skin. As a prep step, it's pretty nice, but it's not like a primer. It's not really anything. I don't know what most people use this for. It says for a smoothing, glowing complexion. Do I look smoother? Did it blur? That was really nice to smell again. I haven't used this product in so long. The bottle's really nice. It's beautiful. It's glass. This stuff is expensive though. And because it's I wouldn't use it in my skincare routine and I wouldn't use it in my makeup routine, it's not something I need to have. Whenever I was getting it in gratis at Sephora, and if you don't know what gratis is, when you work at Sephora, you get free product from brands. It depends on what they're promoting or if there's a new launch they want you to be educated on. You'll get stuff like that. But Caudalie, the brand reps will also sometimes give you gratis. The Caudalie brand rep was very generous with this because I feel like I always had this whenever I worked at Sephora and for a long time after I was done working at Sephora, simply because it was I had so many of them. So that was really nice to use, but I probably wouldn't buy that again. So the next product, really early on in my YouTube career, I had a mini of this and I panned it entirely. I bought it because of
Tarte Westbrook.
Yes, that's correct. I was watching Tarte, but I was watching old videos of Tarte. And because I don't think this product was even really new or relevant whenever I bought it. It's the Tarte Timeless Smoothing Primer. And I think I let Tiff use mine a couple of times and then they ended up buying a full one. I only ever bought the smaller one. Pore Refining Primer is not something I'm using a ton. I remember feeling like this was a good alternative to the one from Tarte. Both are not cheap, right? Tarte's not much cheaper than what Tarte charges their stuff at. But the Tarte primer always made me look greasy, and this one never really did that. Now that I'm on a bit of a different journey with my makeup, because whenever I bought this product and was using it a lot, I was doing a lot more full coverage kind of matte looks. And whenever I was using it and finishing it up on my channel, I was just really just trying to use it up. And I still remember liking it even whenever I was getting more into more natural looking skin. But it is just a very silicone-y primer. I mean, I feel like it does blur a little bit. Well, not much is picking up on camera. I have glitter on my face. I really don't know what it's from. It's probably from swatching things in Tiff's room. Yeah, I mean, it's smooth. It feels good on this side of my face. It's done a little prep work. This is something that I could see myself having again in the future, but not something that I'm gonna go out of my way to have again in the future. It's feeling really nice. Although I think if I went in with this, not without having done the Elixir from Caudalie, I think my skin might have felt a little bit dry from using this primer. So this would be a primer I would have to use right after skincare or in conjunction with another hydrating product. It's not making my skin feel dry. I just think if my skin was dry already and not very moisturized, I think that this would not do my skin any favors. When I used this product up, I was probably 4 years younger than I currently am, 3 or 4 years younger than I currently am. So it's just a different beast. I have a bit of a headache brewing. Everything smells really potent to me right now. The Beauty Elixir I remember smelling pretty potent, but I don't remember having any feelings about the scent of this. I probably smelled the same then, but all the scents are really hitting my nose a little bit different today. My skin feels really good actually. Looks really good. So I brought 2 products down and I wouldn't have tried it all in my last one. I don't use a lot of color corrector under my eyes. A lot of people use color corrector under their eyes to brighten them or cancel out certain colors under their eyes. Knock on wood. Luckily, my under eyes are pretty balanced. I don't really get bags or discoloration. Sometimes I think I get a little bit of yellowish under my eyes if I don't sleep well or if I'm not keeping hydrated. But I have started using orange color corrector in my eyebrows recently because a concealer palette that I bought has a orange color corrector in it. And I saw that Tiff had this. I'm sure they use this on their under eyes. But I have been color correcting over my brows recently, and I've been really enjoying the effect. So I'm taking a clean brush into Tiff's product, and I wash my brushes, by the way. If you didn't see that on Instagram, I wash my brushes. So I'm going into everything with a clean brush. I'm just going to tap that on my eyebrows. I did shave my eyebrows this morning, but if you're shaving your eyebrows, it is really hard to actually like get it a skin shave. I think I'm actually just like bad at shaving. I feel like even when I freshly shave, there's still visible facial hair. I'm not going to pay someone to wax my eyebrows off. And also you have to, for waxing to work, you have to like grow them out to a certain length and then get them waxed, and I don't want to have any eyebrows. So I just put that on my eyebrows. This is the Bobbi Brown corrector in Bisque that I just used. I probably need something darker for my eyebrows, even compared to the one that's like in that décolleté palette I've been using. I still think that both of these concealers are like too light for what I'm using them for. It's a nice way to use a product that, if I keep that décolleté palette in my collection, it's like nice to find a use for that particular thing. But they also had another color corrector. I do occasionally use green color corrector. I do feel like right now my skin's pretty much under control. Like I feel like my redness is pretty evened out. Like I don't have a ton of it. Sometimes I'll get redness on my neck, but I've been doing some different things while I'm shaving so that I don't have as much redness and breakouts. I saw this green color corrector from Neutrogena. It's the Neutrogena Niacinamide B3 color correcting concealer, and it's in the shade green. So, I mean, I still have a little bit of redness right here, and I'll just apply a little bit on the high points of my cheeks and blend it in. But I'm not really looking for this to do a lot of work. I just thought it would be a good product to try. It looks a lot like the color corrector from Chanel, although this actually seemingly has a lot more green pigment to it, or my redness is just not as prominent as it was the last time I used the Chanel color corrector. Because as I'm blending this out, instead of kind of canceling out the redness, it is just kind of remaining green on my skin. And yeah, there's always like a little bit of a green hue after using a green color corrector, but like it just seems pretty green. And the Chanel one, and I think it's because the Chanel color corrector is like a really, really pastel green, I feel like it melts into my skin a little bit more than this. I'm not saying that I think Chanel's green color corrector is the end-all be-all color corrector or green color corrector, but I think if I went with something like this or more pigmented, like I know that Hannah Louise Poston uses the one from Exa and really loves that one. I think if I used that one, I think on my skin tone, that would read really green. And I also just think with skincare, I have been able to like reduce redness satisfactory enough that I don't feel like I need additional product cosmetically. Like with concealer and foundation, that normally covers my redness well enough that I don't feel like I need this additional step. But I don't know. Can you see how green it still looks even after blending it out? Even if you are looking for a green color corrector, perhaps this one isn't the one. I don't know when they bought this. I didn't even know they had this. Whenever I was going through stuff, I was like, what is that? For concealer today, I'm going back to a product that I actually decluttered to Tiff. A couple years ago, I did a Charlotte Tilbury brand review, and I bought this, and I think this was actually brand new when I bought it. Like the product to the line was brand new. It's the Beautiful Skin Radiant Concealer. So I decluttered this to Tiff, and this is Tiff's favorite concealer. Whenever I declutter something to Tiff and it really works for them, I'm like, was I wrong? I remember just like not feeling any kind of way about this concealer, but at that time I was not as like, I don't know, I want to say that I'm like quote unquote into concealer, but I feel like I hadn't tried as many concealers as I had tried foundations, and I feel like I've tried quite a few more concealers now. So maybe now that I'm like this far into my makeup testing journey, that this concealer might do something a little bit different for me. This is in the shade 2 Fair. I do remember it being really light. I'm wondering if like with some age that has toned down. I'm gonna use very little of it underneath the eyes, and I would have to assume that this was designed for the under eye, just based on it being like a radiant concealer. It is thick, and I think maybe that is the main reason I didn't love it. I prefer a thinner concealer that has higher pigment if I'm going to go for something full coverage, not something thicker to get full coverage or like high coverage, because I find that thicker formulas, at least on my under eyes and the way that things sit on my under eyes, that tends to be where I run into problems. If there's more thickness to it, it tends to like not want to blend out on my skin as seamlessly. Although I'm wondering if like a thicker formula on dry skin or someone who has like more issues with their under eye, maybe that it performs better. Because a lot of people, whenever I worked at Sephora, at least when I first started working at Sephora, really liked the It Cosmetics CC under eye. And I always thought that was like horrid to work with. I could never get it to work on my skin. And that was like when I was into full coverage makeup, just using that was like way too much for me. I can still see the green here, but we're going to use foundation over top of it. I'm actually seeing micro shimmers in this. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to like pick this up on camera. I don't remember having micro shimmers, but as I was blending it out, I was like seeing little micro shimmers. So like the formula of the concealer itself, I don't think looks bad on my skin, but there's micro shimmer in there. I don't love that. Though I don't love that. I want my glow to come from like my skin looking and feeling healthy. You know, like I don't want it to come from like shimmer. I don't know that that's like 100% like an immediate no from me when it comes to this, but it is interesting. This brush is not something I would ever use glitter with. And I just wash my brushes. This is the only place it could really come from. So the next thing is probably something that you would never expect to see on my channel, which is why I grabbed it from their room. And I don't know that they had this the last time I went through the room. And I don't know if the color is going to work for me because I think this was something that was like decluttered to them. And also it is expired. But I think that's the SPF in it. The story of my life is that the SPF is expired in whatever complexion product I'm trying. So this is from Kosas. It's the Revealer Foundation. And I do believe that Tiff likes this. I feel like I remember them reporting that to me, but then I didn't really retain that. I am very curious about this. I have given Kosas a lot of flack on my channel. It's not a brand that I'm like super interested in. Just like the presentation of the brand, what I feel like they're like trying to get at the bottom of whatever they're doing over there. Like, I don't know. I just don't really like anything about them. If I'm being very honest with you. Who cares? But I figured this could be a fun little like, let's test a brand that Tom always complains about. I have the shade Very Light Cool 120. That's it on my finger. Yeah, I think that'll be okay. Yeah, I do think it smells a little bit weird, but it's not fresh. And I guess, because I've never tried anything for Kosas, I guess they are kind of like prone to doing that, like their products, because they're like a cleaner brand. And I don't think they use like super strong preservatives. I think all of us use products past their expiration, but I think whenever we can like smell it in the way that I can smell this, it's kind of gross. I only have it on this side of my face. I think it is a good match. Granted, I haven't used a lot of Kosas products, but I guess my expectation for Kosas, especially like this foundation product, that it was going to be like kind of wet looking. And that could be my bias against them because I did try their oil foundation thing that they had, the tinted oil that they had a while ago, and that was like a complete mess and miss in my brain, which is probably why they got rid of it. It was only really friendly to very specific people, that product. I think it looks really dry on my skin, but that could be for like one of two reasons. The Tarte primer, I feel like mattifies things a little bit. It doesn't give a very juicy finish to foundation products. So that makes sense to me. Like it could be the Tarte, could be the fact that this product is expired and smells rancid. As far as foundation goes, I feel like, I mean, it's has a very light coverage in my opinion. Gets evened things out nice enough. Like, it's not really doing anything bonus. You know me. I love my foundations to kind of look like I've just applied a filter to my face. And, like, this looks good. I'm not saying that it doesn't look good. But it's not giving me that, like, ethereal, filtered effect to my skin that I tend to like from my foundations. I am judging this product, and it is old, and it has expired. So, like, I'm keeping that all into account. I just, like, I'm very whelmed by this. But if I recall when this product came out, it was, like, some people did love it, but some people were whelmed by it. I think I just fall into, like, the whelmed camp. But I think because it kind of feels basic, it would be a really good product for, I think, what Kosas kind of does, like, they kind of like finger painty, play kind of makeup. I feel like is like kind of their thing. And I feel like if you were mixing this in with like a liquid illuminator, they have one and it's sparkly. But like it kind of gives me the vibe of something that would be really good for that. I would say like it kind of gives the vibe of like it would be maybe a really good foundation for a makeup artist kit. Something very like right down the middle. I feel like it looks like skin, but like not really enhanced skin, not like super healthy skin. It just like looks like my skin. When I think about using the Patrick Ta foundation, I feel like it looks like I just did my skincare and it has that beautiful afterglow effect. Not even like a wet look effect, just like a really just like healthy look. It just feels like a semi-matte foundation that would work really well. But I would hesitate if I was a makeup artist to choose this from my kit just because of how quickly it expires. And whenever you're a makeup artist, a working makeup artist, you have to actually care about expiration dates. You don't want to use expired product on your clients. I'm not really sure about this. If this is your favorite foundation, let me know if the finish that I got out of it is the finish that you get out of it. And if you think that the finish is different because of either the primer or the age. Have you ever bought a Kosas product and did it stink after a certain period of time? Because this is really wild. It's not like sticking around as I have it on my face. I can really only smell it with the brush close to my face. I definitely prefer something a little more glowy than this. I do really like the effect of the Tarte primer, but perhaps that's also something that might be a little too matte for me now. I'm not gonna like keep this makeup in my room to continue to test because it's Tiff's makeup, but like something I would do if I was like testing this makeup again, I would use the Tarte primer with some of my more glowy foundations to see if I get a better finish, you know, with it, or try this with my other primers, mixing stuff in with it, just to play around some more. So there's complexion. I'm gonna see it a little bit just because so you can see kind of just like the finish of everything on my face right now. It's just kind of like good, but like not overwhelmingly good. 'Tis the season for looking a little dry, obviously, because it's winter here. Let's start sculpting the face a little bit. So I brought this down, and whenever I did my contour video, my cream contour video, I did bring this down. Biscuit is like a fan favorite contouring product. A lot of people describe it as a cool toned brown, and I have talked a lot on my channel about how things pull very warm on me. That is Biscuit from Westman Atelier. Westman Atelier has beautiful packaging. We all know, we love, and like I do actually like a stick format for contour so I can just like draw it on my face and get along. But look at how warm that looks. And this is the problem with a lot of mass market things, especially things that are higher end. They tend to have a bit of warmth to it. I do think that most people don't really want to use a cool toned contour, but it often like leaves people who have like fair skin tones out of the conversation when we're talking about contour. But the thing I use most of the time when I contour is Ritual Diffuse Intuition, which I've repotted, depotted, repotted again, etc., etc. And I just want to swatch it next to this just to show you like what kind of undertone I need for contouring. This is a very light gray with a little bit of pink in it. Like that's what I need for my skin tone. So I think people with like medium skin tones or like different undertones than me could probably pull off Biscuit in a way as a contour, but like it really is just a bronzer. And a lot of people do prefer contouring, which I'm not saying is wrong. You can prefer how to sculpt your face however you want to. But when a lot of people recommend contouring products, specifically in the Western market to me, they always end up being like this brown. I'm actually going to get my other contouring product out too. It's the Victoria Beckham Contour Stilo in the shade Travertine. And it's actually even oranger than Biscuit. It's like pretty close, but I would say Biscuit's maybe even a little bit cooler. But you can see like these contour products for my skin tone just normally end up reading as bronzer. We're going to use it as a contour today. I also brought a different bronzer down that I would like to use. It was actually a little harder to blend than I remember it being whenever I tried it last. Like I feel like it really doesn't want to blend out down here. I mean, it does sculpt my face a little bit, but if you watch a lot of my videos, normally after I contour, I feel like it's a little less visible and a little less noticeable than this because this is just not as like intuitive to my skin as the one from Ritual Diffuse. That's where we're at with that. And then I brought this down. One, I didn't know that this product existed at all, let alone did I know that it existed in Tiff's collection. So this is a product from Natasha Denona. I doubt this is made anymore. I like don't remember this. But this is a highlighting stick. It's in the shade 01 Light. That seems like something I would like though. I'm not going to swatch it actually. I'm just going to put it on my skin. We'll see. I'm going to apply this from a brush. I don't buy things from Natasha Denona anymore. We might talk about another Natasha Denona product. I just want you to know that. Like, this is not something I would buy right now. But I literally don't think that she makes this anymore. I feel like the brand has been overhauling the last couple of years. As I'm using it, the product itself is like kind of soft and is blending actually really well and kind of melting right into the skin and looking pretty great. It is like very my style of highlighter that I'm into right now. Something a little more subtle, but has like a healthy glow to it. I bet it will set on my skin too. Like, I don't think it's going to stay super creamy. It doesn't have a balmy texture to it. It's very big. Like, it's very big for a stick product. Like, compare it to Westman Atelier. Now, they might have similar amounts of product in them. Obviously, size can be deceiving. So the Westman Atelier stick has 0.21 ounces or 6 grams. And this one has 9.2 grams. So it does have a lot more product than the one. That's like a lot of highlighter. I do kind of like how chunky the packaging is, I'm not gonna lie. Sometimes chunky packaging I'm very into. Sometimes chunky packaging I'm like very not into. I'm actually very excited about the powders that I pulled out for this video. This is a product I had a long time ago, and when I first did the Battle of the Blur back in the day, this was actually one of the powders that was in contention. This is the Pat McGrath Labs Skin Fetish Sublime Perfecting Blurring Under Eye Powder, and this is in the shade Light. When I compared it to the Chantecaille powder, problem with it is that I didn't really like it all over the face because it is a brightening powder, and I felt like it made my skin, like, it lightened my skin more than I wanted it to. It's like labeled as an under eye powder, so it can be used for that. But I just think if one goes too heavy in with this powder, it can really start looking really super powdery. But if you apply just the right amount, it can have a really beautiful blurred finish. It is really wild how much sparkle was in that concealer. But the Chantecaille one, I like it under my eye, and I also like it all over my face too. There's so much glitter on my face, and I haven't even done eyeshadow, and I don't even think I'm going to be using like a super glittery eyeshadow just because of the products that I picked out. Yeah, I'll stick with my Chantecaille. I know a lot of people love this, and I'm not saying that you shouldn't, but for me, the Chantecaille just is a little more versatile. With that product, I can pack it more into my skin than this one and kind of like not feel like I have to baby it too much. But for the rest of my face, I'm going to be using this. This is from Hourglass. It is their Loose Veil powder. Whenever I used to bake my face, this was my favorite powder to use. Now, obviously, I bake my face a little bit less now. I really only do baking if I'm really going to have a long evening, which it's great for. Even if you're really careful about doing it, if you're of a certain age or have specific concerns about your under eyes or whatever, it can be done in a way that still will be okay for your under eye. That's incredibly blurring. I now really understand. I remember why I really like this powder. And whenever I use it for my under eyes, it was just as blurring. But I think whenever I first had this powder, I was a little less concerned about blur. I have been trying to get myself to love the Givenchy powder. I've been using it a lot more off camera whenever I've been doing looks, and I just don't love that Givenchy powder. And I'm talking about the formulation that like almost everyone loves. And for me, like, I think this looks so much better on my skin. And obviously powder, I feel like kind of with mascara and perfume, it's like just so personal to the person using it. Like, it really does matter how much product you're using, how much product you like to use, what your desired effect from a powder is. And I think this like blurs and like does a little bit of soft glow mattifying. And I'm very into that. Even though my skin was looking dry, using this powder, I feel like made it look better. For bronzer, I did pull out this. This is something I decluttered to Tiff. Ambient Lighting Powder Bronzer from Hourglass. And this is in the shade Diffused Bronze Light. This is one of those bronzers that, for my skin tone, it's like really effortless and beautiful. And it's kind of one of those bronzers when you are applying it, you're like, is anything happening? And then you like pull away from it and you take in your face all together and you're like, oh yeah, there is a little bit of bronzer there. My favorite kind of bronzer that just like, did it bronze? Kind of like whenever I use the Auric Mirage Shift bronzer and I put it on, people are like, it doesn't even look like you bronzed your face. It's like, yeah. That's kind of the desired effect. I feel like this also makes my skin look really healthy. It has like just the right amount of glow to it. The only unfortunate part about this particular line of product from Hourglass is it doesn't go deep enough. And I think this bronzer is a million times better than the solid bronzers that they put in those face palettes in the holiday season. I just think these bronzers just make my skin look so much better. I do believe they sell these in a mini. And if you are like looking for a bronzer, like a mini bronzer, or just like want to try this bronzer, that would be the way I would do it. It's like really lovely. If you have fair skin like me and you want just a little bit of warmth, but like also a little bit of sheen, I just use that, and I use that Hourglass powder, and I was like, you know, Hourglass, some Hourglass stuff really does work. It works very well. I'm like pretty good on bronzer right now, so this is not something I would be considering to buy again. Also, I decluttered it to Tiff, and I feel like if I asked Tiff nice enough, I'm like, can I have that back? Because they have the one shade darker of this, and I think they like that one more. But actually, there's quite a dip going in this one, and I think that Tiff made that dip and not me. But this is really lovely. So basically what I'm saying is Hourglass is kind of like killing it, and I was like still a little bit more Hourglass. Whenever I was picking color cosmetics from Tiff's collection, I wanted to like pick some brands that like I've not tried before, or if I have tried before, it's been a while, and maybe like try to pick a couple of colors that I wouldn't usually go for. I put out this is from Kimchi. It's the Thailor blush in TB06 Vacation, and it is like a nude blush, so it's not like the most exciting blush. It's mostly a brand that I haven't tried in a while. Back in the day, I tried Kimchi Cosmetics, but it was whenever they were like just launched. So the collection wasn't as well-rounded. I don't believe that these blushes existed at the time. Or if they did, I like wasn't as into blush as I am now. That was super powdery. I was actually expecting that to be a little more firmly pressed. It's a drag queen brand. It's probably going to be more pigmented than I'm expecting. I'm going to just pounce it on the back of my cheek here to see what we're working with pigment-wise. Okay. It's a very nice nude blush for someone with my complexion. You know what this reminds me of? It actually reminds me of the collab that Finding Ferdinand did with Khaki. It reminds me of the Summer Abroad collection in the lightest two beige shades. It's very similar, where it has a little bit of that warm, pinky, beige situation happening. There's like the lighter version and the darker version. It's very similar. Just kind of like a powder version. It's not exactly the same, and I am going off memory here, but it's giving very similar vibes. That's a really heavy blush application for me, actually. I'm feeling self-conscious about it, but maybe towards the end here, it'll feel a little more at home on my face. As you know, I love a finishing powder. I always use the Chantecaille Perfect Blur finishing powder. Tiff has that, but a product that I used back in the day was this. This is Hourglass's Dim Light. I definitely have a reason for why I stopped using this. There was an overlap in time where I had this as a finishing powder in conjunction with the Chantecaille Perfect Blur finishing powder. So I think a lot of people with dry skin end up really liking this powder because it has that soft glow to it. With someone who has oily skin, using this as a finishing powder or as a powder at all, one, I think it's a little too dark for my skin, so I do think it deepens my skin a little bit. It looks really beautiful at first, but it does start looking very heavy on my face after a while, and that glow that it gives you that's supposed to hit you, like makes you look like you're in candlelight glow. What's this one called? Yeah, dim light. It's supposed to make your like skin look really beautiful in dim light. There's something about that looks terrible as the day progresses. It just looks so bad on my skin. So this isn't a product that like really works great for me, but I wanted to put it on. I feel like my skin has changed a little bit. I do think I'm a little bit more dry than I was back when I was initially trying out this product. I am going to use it as a finishing powder all over the face. I am going to go in with the brush I usually use for finishing powder. I imagine back in the day I probably like swirled my brush in there, but I'm actually just going to like tap it in a few times, and I'm just going to tap it into my skin. Now, I know some people with fair skin who use this as a bronzer. If you know Kat, the Kitsch Snitch, finished one of these using it as a bronzer, like a very, very, very light bronzer. And I can see it working really beautifully for that. Even the soft amount I just used deepened my skin a little bit. If I were to like delve back into the world of like Hourglass finishing powders, I would need a lighter one. I think it has a time and place, and I think the people who love it, I understand why you love it. It's a product that I think is hard to explain the value of to someone who like is just getting into makeup or like doesn't want their makeup to be too complicated. I think this kind of thing is too much. Very similar to the way I feel about the Phytosurgeon Spectral Shine. It's like one of those things like, this is really complicated and can overcomplicate things for people who want their makeup to be more simple than this. After powdering and the blush and stuff, I think my skin looks a lot better. The foundation and concealer have had more time to sit on my face and kind of become one with it. So I think everything's like looking pretty good. So we're not having any travesties, which is great. This is something I decluttered to Tiff. I did an eye primer video back in the day where I tested a bunch of eye primers and I compared them. And I really liked this one. You get a ton of product with this one. And I also think if you are interested in an eyeshadow primer video, I believe Sarah Rose Beauty is working on one, and she is kind of right now accumulating a bunch of eyeshadow primers to test. So if you want an updated version of that video, I think go check out her channel. Again, it's not posted. It probably will be a while, but just know that that's coming if that's something that you're interested in. If you're like trying to figure out which eyeshadow primer might be best for you. This has a light scent to it that I don't remember, but again, I think I'm very sensitive to scent today, specifically. It kind of has a little bit of that sweet peach scent. It's not very strong. It's not like as strong as those things were scented, but it has a slight scent to it, which makes sense because it's Too Faced. I remember really liking this eyeshadow primer. I am going to set my eyeshadow primer with just one of my nude eyeshadows. The eyeshadow options I brought down from Tiff's room. I kind of did two things. One, I was like, oh wow, I can't believe that. Not that I can't believe that they have this product still, but I like forgot that they had this. The Alyssa Edwards Anastasia Beverly Hills palette. So wild just to, you know, see this again. This came out while I was working at Sephora. Yeah, I think whenever this came out around the time that Alyssa Edwards was on All Stars 2, I believe, which like I think I started like a little bit after that at Sephora, or maybe it came, I don't know. I feel like, but I was there. I was there when the Alyssa Edwards palette was at Sephora, so I remember seeing it on the shelf. I also brought down this. This is the Natasha Denona Glam palette. I've been reminiscing about the old All Stars days. It was funny because Tiff and I used to have a Drag Race podcast and watched a lot of Drag Race, and we will sometimes watch the seasons that are currently happening. We haven't decided whether or not we're going to start watching the one that just started recently. Blast from the Past, very of our history as friends. And like, that's actually how we became friends. Like when we started that podcast was like also the beginning of our friendship. And this I brought down just kind of like as an interesting thing. I remember whenever the Glam palette came out, people were like, finally a cool toned palette. What do you mean? What do you mean a cool tone palette? And I know that obviously other Natasha Denona fans or people who are in the makeup industry or makeup community who like know a lot about makeup, we all have kind of come to the conclusion like, is this cool toned? Now there are some cool tones in there, but even the cooler tones in here are like grounded in something warm. I would just call this an attempt at a neutral palette. I do have the I Need a Nude palette right here, which was also promised to be cool toned, but I also feel is still a little bit warm, but like comparatively to the Glam palette, it is much cooler. It's definitely desaturated, but I wouldn't even really describe this as cool tones. I would say like the thing that I have right now that is the most cool toned is the palette that Shaz did with Bella Beauté Bar. I can't remember. It's like the Realm of Fairies palette. That's like the only thing I have right now that I feel like is a palette entirely made of cool tones. But it is just funny to see this palette and be like, you remember whenever like we were so into warm tones that this came out and people were like, the first cool tone palette on the market. I mean, they weren't saying that, but like this was really being like pushed to be like, wow, adventurous cool tones being released by Natasha Denona. And it's like, I'm leaning towards this because one, I'm more familiar with the Natasha Denona formula, and I do know that this palette is more recently purchased than the one from Alyssa Edwards. And when I'm looking at the Alyssa Edwards palette, I certainly could do something that would be wearable for me. I'm going to use the Natasha Denona because it's a little more my comfort level, but it was fun to be able to show you that. Oh, I forgot about the drama of this palette, that the shade names tried to tell you where to place the eyeshadows. I like forgot, but not everyone can use those for those particular purposes. So I think maybe I might follow the rules here, but I'm going to use the shade Transition as my transition. And I would say that of the shades in this palette, this is like the only one that's like close to being cool toned. It actually reminds me a lot of this shade I really like that I've been testing from Mob. I actually posted on my story the other day. I'm not sure of the number. Mob has like a numbered naming system for their eyeshadows, or well, actually everything in their line is like numbered, which some people will not care about and some people will enjoy that. It makes it just like a little more clinical. I think fun, and it's kind of nice. I also hate shouting out shade names, but also shouting out M102 or whatever, whatever the shade names for Mob is also annoying. I was expecting like a little more pigment from that shade. As I've used a lot of Natasha Denona eyeshadows in my time. I've used a lot. It just feels like even her like lighter, more transitional shades tend to be a little darker than that. And I am going to use crease in the crease. I am the skin tone designed for these particular instructions. This was always a palette that I like think I really secretly thought I wanted in the back of my head, where I was like, oh yeah, if I were to buy another Natasha Denona palette, that would be one that I would consider buying. But it was never like the right time. And then by the time, I don't know, I had like the wherewithal to maybe want to buy a Natasha Denona palette, I had already bought the really big 28 pan ones. And I was like, think I'm good on Natasha Denona eyeshadow and kind of like eyeshadow in general. At this point, I think it behooves me more to like try more brands than just, you know, the mainstream brands, just so I can have a little more of a grasp of what's going on in the makeup world, other than my small little bubble of the things that I've tried a lot from. I mean, wow, they really do bully you in this. You can do only a couple looks with this. I'm just feeling compelled to keep on doing the instructions. This one's called Center Eyelid, but there's a couple shades in here called Center Eyelid. I'm gonna just sweep that all over the lid. But it is like a gunmetal gray, which is pretty. That was so pigmented. Oh, wow. Okay. It's like I've used Natasha Denona eyeshadows before. It's like I forgot. I went in so strong, so confident. Should have been acting like that. I was acting a fool, girl. As I'm putting this look together, I'm just like... And I love a basic eyeshadow look, but I'm actually like shocked at how basic this process feels. I think naming, obviously for many reasons, naming the shades, like where you're supposed to place them on your eye, is like limiting. But I also think even if you're trying to avoid that subtext, it's just like you kind of feel it when you're looking at it and organically playing with it. But like, I don't know, I feel like this eyeshadow look is pretty but underwhelming. Obviously, I do like stuff that's more sparkly on the eyes. This is one of those Natasha Denona palettes that like really doesn't have like the layered texture that Natasha Denona, I think, really excels at in some of her palettes. No, that wasn't very fun to play with. I'm not gonna lie to you. I do really like the I Need a Nude palette, and I find that palette is much more playful than the Glam palette was to play with. Because I feel like all of the looks are gonna have this same finish and this same general structure if you are like following along with like the palette here. I'm not gonna use this on my eyes, but look at this. Look at this. That was in Tiff's collection. That's a Marc Jacobs black liner. Is Marc Jacobs coming back this year? Because I feel like that was like something that was rumored last year. I am going to use Victoria Beckham's black eyeliner, and I'm going to do the waterline and tightline with it. Did you guys know that Severance is back? Severance was a show that I talked about a lot on my channel whenever I watched it the first time. But I watched it long after it had finished the first season. And then because of the writer's strike and everything, the second season took a long time. And I don't think it was... Why is this hair doing this right now? Anyway, the second season just started airing. I watched the first episode. Let me know what you guys are thinking down below. Well, one, I'm glad that they did like a previous season recap because... I was like really lost. I would have been really lost if they didn't do that. But I feel like they set up a lot of stuff in this first episode. Where do we go from here? I guess that's kind of how I've been feeling. I'm like, that's a lot to add without really answering a ton of questions from the previous season. But if you're watching Severance, let me know. If you have watched Severance. If you haven't watched Severance, and if you like a drama thriller kind of television show, I highly recommend. There are very few television shows at this point in my life where I feel like I need to put my phone down to like watch and also comprehend what's going on. Whether or not I'm willing to is another thing as well. And I put my phone down for that show. I was like, I'm gonna have eyes on that, actually. So I pulled down 2 lip glosses. I'm gonna use a disposable lip applicator for whichever one I put on my face. This one's from Trixie. It's a little purpley. It might be a little too colorful for what I have. This is the shade Prism. And then this is from Pat McGrath. I don't think I ever had this one. This is the... What were these called? They were the sparklier ones. Oh no, this is just a regular lip gloss. I thought that this was one of the... She had a line of lip glosses that were like multi-chromatic. This has a lot of sparkle in it. It's very dimensional. But this is the gloss in Alien Angelic. I do feel as though this is probably not a shade they make anymore. Tiff still smells like vanilla. So I recently had to dispose of, not had to, but I chose to dispose of 2 Pat McGrath lip glosses that I had in my makeup collection. And they no longer smelled like the vanilla smell. But so it's nice. I think I am, as I'm starting to put an applicator in it, I am going to be using this one because I don't know that I've ever seen this color on. I did look through all of Tiff's lipsticks, and Tiff has a lot more colorful lipsticks than I do. They had some nude shades of the Sephora matte liquid lipstick, and I was like, I don't know, I feel like putting that on my face. I never had a good time with those. I know that there's a lot of colors in them, but like, I have a feeling those ones are a couple years old, and I do think that they reformulated those a lot whenever I was working there, and I'm sure they continued to have reformulated them, because the Sephora collection is pretty unreliable as far as like what's going to stick around and what won't. Well, most things don't stick around. Most things get reformulated. Sometimes it's to keep up with the times. They would often reformulate or get rid of things that like was actually some of the only stuff people bought from Sephora collection. They got rid of the dupe of the Air Flash from Dior, but Dior also got rid of Air Flash, and I don't know if they're ever going to bring it back. People really loved Air Flash. It was really popular, and people really liked that Sephora collection had like a good alternative to it. Tiff's lip glosses were definitely in better shape than mine were. This lip gloss feels so comfortable. This lip gloss feels a lot like what I remember Pat McGrath lip glosses feeling like when I first bought them. So mine were definitely like on their last legs. This feels like nourishing and kind of buttery, like feels really nice on the lips. Okay, I don't know if this is like the best makeup look I've ever done. I don't know that I'm super satisfied with the outcome. I don't hate it though. It's like totally serviceable. I think I'm going to film another video. I think I am going to like zhuzh this look up a little bit. Mostly the eye look. I'm going to use Fix Plus to like zhuzh the skin a little. I'm feeling a little more okay about it, but I do need to add more sparkle to the eyes because this is an unacceptable amount of sparkle. Meaning there is none. It's always really fun to play with someone else's makeup. Maybe if we ask Tiff really nicely, meaning I ask Tiff really nicely, I will, or maybe what we could do, I'll have Tiff on my channel and I'll pick out like a normal face of makeup and I will have them apply it the way I normally apply my makeup. They had pitched this idea actually a while ago, and Tiff thinks I do too much for my complexion. Which I agree. I don't think most people would do what I do for my complexion, but it's just one of those things. That's like my love for the complexion products. So it would be really fun to hear them complain and be mad at me and think that what I do is stupid, which is ultimately what that would end up being. So I'll try to get Tiff down here and I'll just sit in the back and LOL while over there sitting up here. Or I guess I would just sit up here with them and tell them what to use. But I think that could be fun for all of us. Let me just go through and pick out highlights for me of what I used today. The things that I feel like I was most excited about using either again or for the first time today. The Tarte Timeless Smoothing Primer. I really think that it made a really good base, although I do think it might have mattified the foundation that I used today. Hourglass powder. Just as good as I remember it being, as well as the Hourglass bronzer. Very good. And I also think that this is really pretty, this highlight from Natasha Denona. Like, I think that's very, very gorgeous. And I'm going to have to ask them, I'll be like, when did you buy this? I don't remember you having this at all. Not that I know everything in Tiff's collection, but, oh, also using the lip gloss. I think it's pretty. I don't know that like I would need this color of lip gloss, but it's really pretty. I think that Pat McGrath's sparkle distribution in her lip glosses is pretty good. Like, I like the way it looks. It's very effective and I think it reads as glittery. Whereas sometimes I feel like glittery lip glosses, you put them on and they don't really look that glittery. This reminded me like what a new or a in working condition Pat McGrath lip gloss could feel like. And I would say the duds, I'm glad I really never bought the Natasha Denona Glam palette. It's kind of whatever. It seems like something that should be up my alley, but really isn't. The sparkle glitter in the Charlotte Tilbury concealer was jarring. It was expired, but I didn't really care for my experience with that. And the Westman Atelier contour stick was harder than I remember to blend. I think overall I have a very satisfactory look. If you're new to my channel, this is a lot of what my channel is about. I want to love makeup in a way that's not always spending money. While I do buy things for review and I get PR for review, and I try to be as honest about that as I can whenever I do try and review things, I really want myself to love my makeup collection as it currently is before making a new makeup purchase, especially if I'm making a purchase for myself and not something for the makeup that I would review on my channel. So if that's the kind of content that you're into, if you're on a makeup low buy, makeup no buy, or a budget of some sort, this is a safe space for you. I'd love to have you subscribe. Make sure you hit the like button down below. I'm on Patreon and I have channel memberships over there. I do one additional video every month and you can do that if you'd like. There's no pressure to join my Patreon or channel memberships. I'm very happy that you're here, but if you are a current member or patron, thank you so much. The pinned comment will have links to help people in Gaza and help people that are being affected by the fires right now in Los Angeles. If you have extra money to support those people, please do. And that's going to wrap up the video for me. Remember to follow your haute and you'll find me. And I'll see you in a video very soon. Go forth Tits out.